This it's been a busy night, week, year, life, whatever you want to call it. And as you know, I'm getting over being really sick. I just got out of a convention committee meeting, so I said, you know what, this subject has kept coming up. So I wanted to do a quick live stream on it. I actually have this streaming on another channel I have too that's very rarely used, that I use for beauty items, but this is a subject I know interests people. I'm going to give it a few moments to build an audience. And yes, I do mix stripes and polka dots and plaid. Don't come for me. I'm hoping that using this onboard software, I didn't feel like going down to my freezing basement for studio, that I'll be able to play a video. I get asked a lot by people who are usually older, not necessarily as old as I am, but adults, particularly other women, but not always, sometimes some men, who say that they suspect that they are on the spectrum, that they suspect that they're on the autism spectrum disorder. And since I am so open about the fact that I am, that they're comfortable talking with me about it. And I'm more than happy to talk about it. I think we need to take the shame and stigma out of these types of things, which is why I'm pretty much an open book about everything in my life. It's just easier to be that way. And it seems like over the past 2 weeks, I've had a lot of people write me to share with me, hey, I've got this going on in my life. I think I might have autism. I always encourage people, if you can and if you can afford it, get a formal diagnosis. Yes, I'm not going to get into the whole argument over whether self-diagnosis is valid or not. I'm not here to judge your life, but you know for sure if you get a formal diagnosis. So I do encourage that, but I understand that as an adult, it gets difficult. There's not that many clinicians who will do an adult diagnosis. So it's becoming more and more common. And I am trying to find something here that I am looking in a drawer for that I probably should have did ahead of time. And if I can't find it, I found it. So I was going to say that's okay. Here's my official diagnosis. And you'll see, if you look up at the top there, I don't want to give away too much, but you can see there's like a little children's logo because mostly they diagnose children. But there's a lost generation of girls, particularly, though I'm not going to say this doesn't happen with boys, that girls present differently than boys, and we are very often missed. So I wasn't diagnosed until I was in my 50s. And that, unfortunately, is not unusual. So because the subject kept coming up, I didn't have anything else planned. There's a video for girls that, and I mean by girls, I'm not trying to be demeaning. I mean women, okay? Literal girls or women, of a YouTuber that I really enjoy that I would like to share with you guys. And then I would like to add my commentary to things she said, though I can relate to everything she says, but I would like to add something to it. And I would like to hear from you guys if there's anything you would add to it. Male, female, doesn't matter, even though this particular video is geared towards women and girls. So I don't think there's really any other introduction. I could go off on some rabbit trails while we're going, but you guys are going to need to let me know if you can hear this video. If you can't hear the video, we're just going to have to do plan B and I'll improvise. And I don't like that. I don't like unexpected plan changes. But let's see if we can put her up on the screen. I haven't done this in a while here. You all will have to let me know if you can hear her. I know you can hear me fine, but I want to know if you can hear her once I put her on the screen. When I put it on the screen, you'll see the name of her channel, but I'm going to give this to you so you could, if you're interested in the subject matter, you can go subscribe. Please go give her video a like. This particular video has over 2 million views. It's a very good video. Her name is Olivia Hops, and this is her first video on the topic, and she's so cute. But let's see if we can pull her up. So I'm going to hit share screen. Okay, let's do this. Okay, now you can see her and you can see me. Can we move me? We can't move me. All right, so you can see her. Hopefully you can still hear me. Let me know. I'm going to start her video playing. I let it go past the intro, I think, though I think there's a little bit left in the intro. Let me see if I can scrub. No, I can't. Past the intro. It's still intro, 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 intro. She has all very nicely. It still says intro, huh? Okay. Okay, we're going to stop at the intro where she talks about herself and her life. But I want to get into the title of her video is 10 female autistic traits. So I just thought this would be fun to talk about and I would give my input. Before we started, as always, if you enjoy the type of content that I produce, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. You might wonder, this is a politics station. Your channel, you do politics and history. Why are you doing a video on autism? A, because I do what I want, because I'm a libertarian. But B, I don't mean this insultingly, and I also don't mean it as a joke. I think 90% of the Libertarian Party is autistic. So you're my target audience. But let's see if you can hear her. Please let me know in comments if you can hear her. And if not, we'll do plan B. So you can't hear her. Damn it. Huh. Well, we're just then going to have to, we'll improvise then. Okay, go check out this video. Obviously, let me see something here. Let me look at my settings. Video, audio, audio input. Show advanced options. Just give me 1 second. I think I know how I can fix this. Let's check something. Audio input, internal microphone, no. Audio. Well, you know what? We're just going to talk about it. So go check out her video. What I am going to do is just go through her list. So let's go back to the without sharing. So the first thing she brings up is sensory issues as one of her top 10 issues. Casey Jones, I really appreciate that comment because I don't think it's a human trait. As I go on to describe, perhaps maybe I won't change your mind, but I think it's somewhat like OCD. A lot of people will say things as a joke. Oh, I'm OCD about this. Wanting your desk clean is not OCD. Maybe one day we'll do a video on OCD. OCD is comorbid with autism, meaning that a lot of people who have autism have other issues. She's going to bring that up, and I'm going to go through her issues. And let me see if she has it in her description because she is very organized. She does. All right. So her first issue that she brings up is sensory issues. I know everyone knows somebody, or perhaps yourself, where you'll say something like, I don't like, oh, and something I forgot to say, all super chats matter. Yes, I'm a grifter. Almost everyone will go, yeah, I don't like the sound of somebody eating, or I don't like the sound of X. I don't like the sound of nails on a chalkboard. It's not like that for an autistic person. Our sensory issues are amplified to such an extent, it's unbearable, like literally unbearable. And I'm so hyper aware of it. I'll give you an example. Wayne could be sitting across the office. I'm not even looking at him, and his back is turned to me, but he's going like this. He might not even be picking a fingernail. He might kind of sort of be. But I sense the movement, and in sensing the movement, I either then really hear the sound or I manufacture the sound, and I can't get it out of my head. And it amplifies and it amplifies to the point where I jokingly said, because I obviously would never hurt somebody. And I've done this with Mike on Cultivar R&R. You all have seen it. I go, if you don't stop that, I'm going to murder you. And he's not being annoying. But certain sounds, and eating is one of them, but I understand that's a common one. There are uncommon ones. I cannot stand when they're in the time of CRT monitors, I could hear every single one of them. I couldn't, it would drive me painfully crazy. And it was hard because I worked around a lot of them. I could hear the is it cathode ray tubes? That's what CRT stands for. I can hear fluorescent lights. I can hear bug zappers. When I was younger, I could hear dog whistles. Not all of them, because I know some of them is physically impossible, but there are certain ranges. If there is any kind of sound when I'm trying to go to sleep, anything, at first it'll be kind of minor. I'll be laying there going, you know what? I'll be asleep in 10 minutes. But it magnifies and it magnifies until I'm literally batshit crazy. Like, and I have to go to another room. I cocoon myself when I'm trying to go to sleep because I cannot have any sensory input. Have terrible insomnia problems because my senses are so heightened. My brain does not turn off. My hearing doesn't turn off. My sight doesn't turn off. Nothing turns off. And it is extremely difficult. I don't like the sound of clapping. Maybe one day you'll notice we might be at a libertarian convention and there's somebody applauding for somebody, and you might look over and see me like this. I cannot stand the sound of clapping. So it really isn't a joke, though I don't expect people to not clap because it bothers me. If it bothers me that much, my happy ass can leave the room. I think doing this is stupid, okay? I don't think the majority of the world should change a perfectly human thing like clapping to accommodate the few of us who don't like it. We can cover our ears. We can find other ways to cope. The rest of the world shouldn't have to do this. And to be honest with you, this is just as freaking annoying. It's just not painful. So sensory issues are a big thing. She also mentioned certain clothes she can't take. Same here. Certain fabrics you can't wear. I know a lot of people don't like the tags in their clothing, but this is more than not liking the tags in your clothing. It is literally maddening. Sensory issues are a huge, huge, huge thing for me. I get very easily overwhelmed with too much input. Talking in a crowd, as an adult, I can manage it, but it's really, really hard because everything is coming. And you'll laugh about in my former marriage. My ex would walk into the room and turn the light on. I'd walk in behind him, I'd turn the light off. I'd be like, "It's too bright, I can't take it." He'd turn the light back on, I'd turn the light back off. We had to put dimmers on every single light in the house so that we could arrive at a happy medium between on and off. I've gotten better at that with age, but that was a constant thing. Um, Also, because of the supersensory issues, I know people think ASMR is BS. I can tell you it's not BS for me. I react so strongly to ASMR, it's not even funny, either in a good way or a bad way. Like either in a super pleasurable way or in a, oh my God, I want to throw up. That is so disgusting way. All right, so that was the first thing. I really wish I could have played her video, but please go listen to it. She is adorable. Second issue is mental illnesses. This is something that is not talked about a lot. And I know when I bring this up, there'll be people on Twitter and social media making fun of me. I don't care. And one of my autistic superpowers is I really, literally don't care what other people think of me. I care what I think of me. I have to look myself in the mirror. And perhaps that's one reason why, during the time of trial last year, I stood up for what I thought was right, despite the fact that the mocking and a lot of the things that happened, if I really, really was sensitive to what other people thought of me, I couldn't have done it. And that isn't anything special on my part. That's just part of who I am in my autism. When I walk through a crowd, I don't even notice. But this brings up something embarrassing that it's kind of a nice to it's not something I've talked about a lot. And if you interact with me at a convention, if you pay attention, you'll notice. I have face blindness. Now, a lot of people, I suppose there's different levels of it. I'll give you my level of it. It doesn't literally mean you see, when you look at somebody's face, you see this. That isn't what it means. I don't recognize faces. I have to know somebody really, really well to recognize their face. It's embarrassing. I could have just been introduced to somebody 2 minutes ago. And like somebody I knew online that, maybe had an avatar that wasn't their face. So I didn't have time to get used to it. 2 seconds later, I don't recognize them. It There's been places I've worked where I don't recognize my coworkers even after a year. It's super humiliating. So you hide it. And what I do is I fake it till I make it. I pick up on conversational clues until finally I make a connection in my mind who this person is. And it's not because I don't care about them. I have face blindness. As a public person, do you realize how difficult that is? When there are people who look up to me or are waiting to meet me at a convention or have just met me an hour ago at a convention, and then I struggle to remember who they are, and it's not because I don't care about them. It's humiliating. That's why I love name tags. So you'll notice something if you observe me. Please don't do it openly, it will be embarrassing. But you'll notice when I walk up to a group of people, particularly at a convention where everyone wear name tag, I will surreptitiously do this and look at everyone's name tag because I want to remember who they are. Because it's insulting. And I don't mean to be insulting to people. If I don't remember you, it's not because I don't care about you. It's because I have face blindness. It's really been only probably Well, we've had a lot of electronic meetings, so just before this LNC meeting, that I can even recognize everyone on the LNC. I I just don't remember. When people ask me, and it's not a memory problem, so don't remember isn't the right word. So sometimes people ask me, "Oh, who's that in a picture with you?" And I just try to change the topic or ignore the question because of that. A lot of people have this, and it's not just being terrible with names. I remember names really well. Some people get really, really surprised. It's placing it to the person. I'll remember so and so said such and such when I'm just remembering a situation, but conjuring up what they look like in my mind is impossible unless I know them really, really well. And it takes a long, long time. I work in a very small office now. I think there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's only 7 of us. Got it. I got everyone's name down. I don't remember everyone's name for a bit. I had to take little cheat sheet notes for only 7 people. Imagine being a public person. Now, she didn't put that on her list, but I guess I grouped that in with mental illness. That's not really maybe it's a cognitive disorder. But in mental illness things, I've got major depressive disorder. I've had it my whole life. It's not feeling a little bummed. It's major, major depressive disorder. Luckily, I found some treatments that work really, really well, um, which we'll talk about another time, perhaps, if people are interested. I don't want to get into it here and sidetrack. I have OCD, and it's not merely want my desk to be straight. As you can look behind me, some people go, "No, you don't. Look how messy that tower is. It's not even straightened up." There's different kinds of OCD. There is the OCD that says everything needs to be lined up. This is all historical stuff, by the way. But that's not the type of OCD I have. And when I was growing up, there wasn't the internet. And I've talked about this before, but I know not everybody has seen this video. And when here's the thing, if anyone else here has OCD and isn't embarrassed to say, would love to hear your experience. Um, Growing up with it now would be a lot easier because you could Google it and realize you weren't alone. But when I grew up, my first computer was a Commodore 64 when I was in 7th or 8th grade. There wasn't computers. If you wanted to look something up, you looked it up in the Encyclopedia Britannica in your house, or you went to the library. That's the way it was. So when you have OCD, you know what you're doing is irrational. You know that, but you do it anyway. And you start to think you're a little Fruit Loops. And of course, you're not going to tell people. Who's going to go around and tell people you're doing crazy stuff? So you keep it to yourself. And the more you keep it to yourself, the more ashamed you get. So there's different types of OCD. Everything having to be in its place, that is a type. And it's not merely being a neat freak. It means that you literally are paralyzed unless everything is a certain way, including picking up dust specks. There's germ OCD with people who wash their hands 100 times. That isn't being a clean freak. Sometimes people with that type of OCD will wash their hands until they're bloody because they're so dry and chapped. I don't have that. What I have is called checking. So I have checking OCD. It's gotten much, much better as I've gotten older. And I also went through cognitive behavioral therapy, which was extraordinarily helpful. But what checking OCD is you can't leave the house until you have different fears. It's what it is. I grew up in a very abusive household. So a lot of people think that that's what OCD springs from. It's like people who self-harm. It sounds and I don't do that. Not that I'm shaming anybody. I'm just saying there's one thing I don't have. They do that as a means of control. OCD is it's an anxiety uh, coping mechanism. So checkers generally have certain types of fears, and my fears was fire. So I would check any appliance in my home that I thought could cause a fire had to be unplugged before I left the house. And the stove had to be turned off because you couldn't pull the stove out and make sure that was unplugged. I would have done it if you could. Okay, a lot of people do that, right? OCD is more than that. OCD is you get in your car and you start to drive to work, and your mind goes, did I check the iron? And you drive back home because, of course, you did. And you check it again. And then you leave the house again and you go, did I really just recheck the iron? Or am I remembering yesterday when I checked the iron? And you go back. And you can do that 20 to 30 times. Normally it's checking the stove, but it could be checking anything. When I was a kid, I was convinced, don't ask me why, I must have saw a scary movie, that in the middle of the night I was going to get bit by a snake. I know that sounds weird, but I was like 6 years old. Every morning, I would get up and I'd spend an hour looking for a snake bite on my body. That's OCD. That's debilitating. It is miserable. You realize you would have felt it if you got bit by a snake, but you do it anyway. It used to be when I came home, I couldn't relax until I checked under every bed, behind every door, behind every curtain, or I couldn't relax. I had to make sure somebody wasn't hiding there until I finally said to myself, Self, what would you do if you found somebody? That's how I got over that one. I can still easily fall into those patterns, but let me tell you the absolute worst. And this is when I was convinced I was just loony until I realized that this is common. I had the checking fear that I was terrified that I ran somebody over. Now, that sounds insane, doesn't it? Don't you think you would know if you ran somebody over? Every bump in the road, I'd go, I don't know, 100 yards and go, oh my God, was that a person or an animal? And I'd drive around the block to go back to that spot to make sure. And I would do that 15, 20 times, particularly at night. Now, I don't do that anymore. I've gotten way, way better with my OCD, but that's comorbid with autism. A lot of people have OCD. So, next time somebody tells you they're OCD because they want their paper to be straight on the desk, just realize that's not OCD. That's just you being neat. OCD is life debilitating. I nearly lost my job over being late every day. I left on time, but I had to go back and recheck the stove. And then I went through cognitive behavioral therapy, and that super, super helped. And as an adult, I think it gets better. Maybe it doesn't for everybody. So if it hasn't for you, I apologize. I do recommend therapy for that. But if you have autism, you might have OCD. A lot of people with autism have anxiety. So certain types of mental illnesses are comorbid. So that was second on her list. Third on her list, inflexibility. Now, I'm not terribly inflexible, but I am inflexible about some things. Ask Wayne. Wayne, let's go out to dinner. He goes, where do you want to go? Now the husbands are going to be understanding. Well, I don't know. You pick. And then he'll say something. No, I don't want to do that. And then he finally picks one. And I'm like, great. We're going to Tasty House Chinese. Perfect. Then we're driving there. And he goes, you know what? Why don't we go to the Rock Yard? And I'm like, I've already reconciled myself in my head that we're going to Tasty House. I cannot switch on a dime like that. Don't do that to me. It is anxiety inducing. I already had it set. And it wasn't because I like the food at one place better or another. It's just, okay, I've dealt with it. I've I've pictured what the place looks like. I understand what the experience is going to be. Don't change plans on me midway. Now, some people are way more inflexible than I am. That's not terrible with me. But when it comes to changing plans on the fly, you will throw me for a loop. Now, this is something that people do not believe. The next thing that she gave was difficulty or dislike socializing. People go, but you're such a social person. I'm an introvert. I am not an extrovert. People really, really misunderstand those two terms. You can be a friendly introvert. More what that means is that you don't get charged up by socializing. It exhausts you. You need your alone time after that. You don't dislike being alone. In fact, you have to be alone for certain periods of time. I could, no shade on Wayne, who I obviously love, but every couple years he goes on a hunting trip. And there's been times when I've been unemployed in that. Being home alone for a week, that can be paradise for me because I need the alone time to recharge in order to deal with people. Dealing with people sometimes in a social situation is super, super awkward. And part of that has to do with the things like face blindness, because imagine how exhausting that is, and not being able to pick up on social cues. Because that is the main feature of autism is you have difficulty picking up on social cues and you tend to be very blunt. And sometimes you hurt people or anger people without really realizing that's what you're doing. And some people think that that just happens with um, one-to-one or verbal, but that's not true. It does happen in email situations as well. And I do think, and they could disagree with me all they want. I really don't care what those people think anymore. That was part of the conflict I had with the prior LNC. They just wanted to read the worst into every single email I wrote because I'm blunt. I don't mean anything by it, but they chose to take things a certain way. And when I put a disclaimer on my email, they go, "You're just looking for an excuse to be an asshole." So, I couldn't win. That doesn't happen with this LNC. They're much thicker skinned, but that can be a problem. Here's one that I hadn't seen often, but I also have this, and it is selective mutism. What selective mutism is when you know what you want to say, but you physically can't say it. It's frustrating. And it's not just having a word on the tip of your tongue or something like that. You physically, it's like your brain is scrambled. Something is not connecting and you can't get it out. That doesn't happen to me often, but it does happen at times, and it's extraordinarily frustrating. Here's where I think us libertarians come in. She said, black and white logical thinker. That describes every single libertarian that I know. We are very black and white thinkers. It's right, it's wrong. It's aggression, it's not aggression. How can you not see this? I don't think I need to explain that. I think anyone here who's a libertarian understands that. Valiant Thor said, sounds like self censorship. No, it's not. I wish I could explain it. Unless you've experienced it, it's hard to explain because a lot of times it's not that you're saying something controversial. You might just be trying to express anything. I mean, something mundane. Like what color, like your husband's asking you, hey, we're going to decorate this room. Do you like this? it could be, it's not self-censorship is like when you're going to say something that you know might not be a popular opinion, or you're scared to say something. It's not like that. For one thing, I don't care what other people think. I say unpopular opinions all the time. And I'm usually not scared to say things. It's not that. It's you feel like you shorted out. I really, if anyone else experiences this, maybe you could describe it better than I can. So the black and white logical thinker, I think we all understand that if we're libertarians here. But here's the one. Okay, I'm going to give you a TMI warning. If you don't want to hear TMI, maybe come back in 5 minutes. Knowing me, it'll be longer than 5 minutes because you know that I talk too much. Gut issues. I do not know one autistic person that doesn't have gut issues. And I think that's where, remember that study that came out where everyone kept saying vaccines cause autism? If you believe that, I'm not here to argue with you. I do not believe that. I believe that study was misunderstood. And even the guy, Dr. Wakefield, who did the study, said it was misunderstood. He pinpointed causes of autism as gut issues. Our gut is called our second brain. That a lot of our functioning comes from our gut, not just from our brain. And I do think something going differently, I don't like saying going wrong, because I wouldn't change being autistic if I could. And I'll explain why. It can be a disability in a way, and I don't mean that in a negative way. When you're dealing with, if you're the odd one out, your disadvantage might be a better word than disability. But gut issues, I have found, is common. My gut issues are severe. But here's the TMI part before we get to the rest of it. This, I wish I could play this audio, because when she said this, I literally laughed out loud. So she said on her video that when she learned that you're supposed to poop once a day, she was like, what? People poop once a day? Really? Like her, you're going to learn more about me than you ever wanted to know. Once every 2 weeks is pretty damn common. I never knew that was unusual until I was an adult, because it's not like we walk around talking with each other about how often we poop. That's normal for me. But you can imagine that makes you feel not so good inside. So that's typical. But also, I can't eat without my stomach killing me. So working is difficult because if I eat, and it makes me tired. After I eat, Mike Seebeck knows this so well from us doing the Cult of R together. I want to go to bed. And I'm in pain. And I'm miserable. So often I have to plan my eating around when can I go home and lay down and go to sleep. Going out eating socially, I just got to power through it. But normally it's very painful. Gut issues are just, they're bad. They're bad. My gut hurts all the time. And that I have found is very, very common with, I don't know an autistic person that 2 weeks might be on the longer end, but I don't think I know an autistic person that goes once a day unless they're drinking Metamucil or something like that. She also listed excellent long-term memory, poor short-term memory. Yeah. No, I don't think as bad as she does. I can remember things from forever ago, but we're short-term things. But I'm not so sure that's an autistic thing with me. It seems kind of within the normal range, but she mentioned that. Um, the last thing, and I want to watch her video again for that last point because I'm not sure how she worded it, but meltdowns. If I get overwhelmed, okay, when I was a young child, I didn't know how to handle my emotions and the sensory input. So I threw temper tantrums. I think I even still have these freaking embarrassing pictures because my brother thought it was hilarious. Oh, yeah. I don't know if I could. I think I've shown these before. Let's see if we could put it up to the camera. My brother thought it was hilarious. They thought they could embarrass me out of temper tantrums. But here's me, he's holding my arms while I'm trying to flail around because I just didn't know how to process my emotion. Here's another. I'm just freaking out in the corner. Just couldn't handle it. Having an absolute temper tantrum. And again, they wanted me to do something, and I just shut my eyes. I just didn't know what to do. As young children, that's how you handle things. Now, what I do is I'm like, I'm overloaded and I just need to go away for a while. And Wayne is such a saint. I'm like, stop, please, just let me go. I don't want to talk anymore. Just let me go. And then I'll go be by myself for a while and then everything's okay. Good thing I don't throw myself on the ground and have a temper tantrum. That would be pretty funny. Actually, no, it'd be humiliating. But, you know, that was part of it. You just get overloaded and you can have a meltdown. And when it happens, you just got to be alone. Now, she put struggle with empathy. And I know that is a common trait amongst people with autism. They say that we struggle with empathy. I think it goes on two extremes. Because struggle with empathy could mean that you have a hard time with empathy, but that isn't the case with me. I have overactive empathy where I have to tell Wayne specifically, don't tell me something sad because I will think about that sad thing and be upset about it for years, literally. We've lived in this house now since like, well, I'll get back on the other thing. When did we move in here? Let's just say a decade because it's been close to that. Well, in the house we were renting, if you live in a place with basements, you have these window wells. Well, apparently a rabbit fell through one of the grates of the window wells and got trapped in the window well and we didn't know it and it like died there and got all desiccated. It's 10 years later and I still can't stop thinking about that rabbit. I'm like, don't tell me sad things because I don't get over it. The empathy is overactive. So, like, my parents couldn't take me to sad movies because I would become overwhelmed. There was a movie called Baby, which I don't know if you remember. I still remember this. How old am I? This was like 40 something years ago, and I'm still sad about this damn movie. So I think the struggle with empathy goes in extremes. You're either over empathetic or you struggle with it. So those were her top 10. And I can really, really, really relate to that. So I just figured it would be an interesting discussion to have. But I pulled this out because there was just some things in here, and I've read this before to you guys, but I have a different audience every time that I thought you'd find this funny. So this is my psychological evaluation. And of course, like a typical autist, I find it fascinating to read like this clinical report. It's like I'm reading, I joke with people, it's like I'm reading a National Geographic report on a foreign species. So let me see, what was the formal diagnosis here? Diagnosis. Autism spectrum disorder level 1 without accompanying intellectual impairment, without accompanying language impairment, and major depressive disorder. So, um, there's just some funny lines in here that I'm trying to find. Um, let's see here. Okay, that part there wasn't very much. There's just some things here you'll just laugh at. It says Miss Harlos reported that she's not good at describing abstract things, which I'm not. That requires direct communication to understand why I upset somebody. That I like facts and I tend to be very direct, and that I become singularly focused on subjects of interest. And then here's the clinician's observation. She seems currently overwhelmingly interested in the Libertarian Party. I go from 0 to Libertarian in 30 seconds, no matter what I'm with, but it's in my official diagnosis. Oh my God. Let's see here. Ms. Harlos appears younger than her chronological age due to having her hair dyed bright pink and wearing glitter nail polish. Ms. Harlos did not provide consistent responses to the examiner's social overtures during the evaluation. She appeared to put forth her best effort, um, and persisted through more challenging tasks. But I thought I responded socially appropriately, but apparently not. Oh my God. But there's something else that's really funny in here. Okay. In the area of reciprocal social interaction, Mrs. Harlos was noted to rarely make well modulated eye contact with the examiner and instead primarily used brief and fleeting eye contact. She directed an expression of confusion to the examiner during several tasks, as well as occasional shared enjoyment. Her social overtures were awkward, and she would not reference back to the examiner when pointing something out to see if she had gained the examiner's attention. She did not respond appropriately to the examiner's nonverbal cues and instead required direct verbal prompts. For example, when the examiner held up a bag for Miss Harlos to put away puzzle pieces, she smiled blankly until provided direction. She also required continuous prompts to turn the pages in a book. You have to tell me what you want. I'm not a mind reader, people. Oh. And then it says she was able to adequately describe somatic sensations associated with anxiety, but displayed significant difficulty communicating her other emotions. When asked to describe anger, she said, "I can't describe that. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be difficult." Oh. And she says, she shared she has a different definition of friends than mostly everyone else and reported that she does not have friends that she interacts with in person on a regular basis. That's true. Most of my friends are online. I explained that I defined friendship as if they're not an asshole, they're a friend. And then I also said, this loose definition has given me problems because too many people are assholes. Oh my God. When provided an opportunity for creative actions, she demonstrated significant difficulty and was unable to complete the task. Instead, she stared at objects she was asked to tell a story with and said, "These things don't go together at all." Ms. Here's gets funnier. Ms. Harlos frequently brought up the Libertarian Party. I don't even remember that. Which may be considered a restricted interest. Oh, oh my God. Oh, this is funny. And then they interviewed my sister because they have to get a family background. And let's see. I don't think they really said too much what my sister said. And it said that, but it was noted that I was non-compliant with school activities. I was very non-compliant. I used to get straight A's. You remember how you used to get the report card with the grades and then either an S or a U for behavior? So you would get, whatever your academic scores were, and then you get an S for satisfactory or a U for unsatisfactory. I used to get straight A's and straight U's. Oh, I was very non-compliant. I did not like authority. Let's see here. And I think that was it. That was oh, I can't believe how much the Libertarian Party came up in here. We are so autistic. So this was in the interview with Wayne. He reported his wife talks primarily about the Libertarian Party. Oh. And it says, my sister said she always knew who she was and was always a unique person who had a mind of her own and knew what she wanted to do. Oh my God. Let's see here. Okay, get ready. This is great. When asked about when her interest in the Libertarian Party began, Ms. Harlow stated, September 17th, 2014 at noon. It's true, by the way. It was that date at that time. When others try to change the topic of conversation away from the Libertarian Party, she tends to circle back to this topic. Oh my God. I'm dying here. Oh. Oh my God. Let's see if there's anything else in here that was funny. I think that was pretty much it. Oh no, the Libertarian Party comes up again. I didn't realize it came up so many times. Okay. Ms. Harlow shares she often upsets females she interacts with without realizing it and has difficulty noticing when her behavior bothers others. It said she recalled as a young child she preferred to play with boys. She displayed insight into her poor understanding of friendships and tends to keep others at an emotional distance. Conversations with her tend to be one-sided and restricted to her area of interest, which is currently the Libertarian Party. This interest seems to be all encompassing. You think my room is just filled with all this shit? This is all LP shit. I've got to scan this. This is Radicals for Capitalism. This is from my town council race. Parliamentary procedures, LP stuff. Parliamentary procedure. Oh, I got a book on autism. Okay, that's good. I got a couple fiction novels, and then Scott Horton. And all up here, this is all just parliamentary shit. That is funny. That is funny. Okay. So, this may have described some of you. But now let me tell you why I wouldn't change a damn thing. And this is why a lot of people who are high functioning autistic people, which used to be called Asperger's syndrome, which is what I have, tend to be very successful in their chosen field because it becomes an all encompassing interest. And you want to know what? I don't think there's a problem with that. I like having an area of expertise. I like knowing what I'm talking about in the area that I'm talking about. It doesn't cause me distress at all. In fact, my all encompassing interest brings me great joy. I'm very good at it. So, in that respect, I wouldn't change a thing. And that's how people with Asperger's become very, very good at some things. Bill Gates had Asperger's. So there's just a lot of people, whether or not you like his politics, that's a different matter. But a lot of innovators and experts in their fields have Asperger's. It allows you to have a singular focus, a singular all-encompassing focus. And some people that might sound like a nightmare. But for me, that sounds like my life has a purpose and that I will accomplish something and make a mark. And to me, that's the purpose of life. That might not be your purpose of life. I just found it funny that I didn't realize that during all of this, but I do know the exact date and time that I discovered the Libertarian Party and my life ended. So just looking around, see if anything else interesting I have to show you, but that's about it. I hope that this was educational for you all. I am sure my haters will get plenty of fodder to make fun of me if they wish. And like a typical Aspie, I really don't care. I like who I am. And I like helping other people like who they are too. So if you found yourself with some of these not typical things, and perhaps you also are diagnosed or you suspect, in which case, again, I encourage you to get a diagnosis. Use your unique talents and predilections to better your life. Life would be really, really boring if we were all the same. So let me take a look at comments here. Trendlin says, my son needs to find his purpose. He's not fully cooked. When he finds it, he'll know it. That's the great thing about being autistic. When he finds it, he'll know it. He just hasn't found it yet. And when he does, he will be very successful at it. It might not be something that makes a great deal of money, and it might be something that makes a great deal of money. But, as far as I'm concerned, autism is my superpower. I have weaponized autism in the best way possible. So, no shame in my game. I'm going back through some of the comments just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Does this thing not let me go through comments? How dare it not let me go through comments? Oh, I think I can pull up the chat on the side. Yes, thank you. So I'm just going through here to make sure there's nothing I missed. No, it looks like I oh, and that's a great question, Trendolyn. I will get to that. If people don't know what imposter syndrome is, it's where you feel like, God, how do I even describe this? It's been a while. I know exactly what you mean. It's where you feel like you are given credit and accolades and status for abilities that you don't really have, that you've fooled people, that you are an imposter, in other words. No, not particularly, though a little bit. I wouldn't equate it to my autism, though. Women in general, and I'm not trying to get into the whole patriarchy thing, but it's very common amongst women when you're dealing with things that aren't stereotypical women's activities. So sometimes if you're in a traditionally male field, and I'm sure it happens with men in traditional female fields. Like, for instance, I'm sure there are male nurses that sometimes feel that way. But it's a very common female trait. I have had it at times where I felt like that people thought I was better at something than I really was. But at those times, it just motivated me to live up to the expectations. I think people with autism who aren't yet diagnosed, and God, I never really thought of this. I've never felt like I've suffered from imposter syndrome ever since I got my diagnosis. Life can be very confusing when you realize you're different from a lot of people and don't understand why. And that leads to a lot of anxiety. And that is the source of imposter syndrome, is anxiety. My anxiety level has gone way down. So if you're older and you're wondering, I'm not a kid, why would I bother to go get a diagnosis? Get it, because you will understand yourself better. And my life has improved a million times since I got my diagnosis. I no longer beat myself up for being different. I no longer beat myself up for not understanding why I might have offended somebody without realizing it. I realize that it isn't that I'm cold hearted or not a good person. I'm just different. And it gives me the opportunity to let people know, hey, I struggle in this area. And unlike the typical stereotype of libertarians where, we're self-reliant, yes, we are. But I think having too much of that attitude leads to dystopia. I do think that we are our brother's keepers and that we should try to understand other people. I don't think I have any right to demand that you, quote unquote, accommodate me. But if we're people who like each other and have respect for each other, we will want to accommodate each other. But we can't do that if we don't talk about these things. So that's why I think these discussions are super, super important, even though I know it will give ammunition for people to laugh, at some of the weird, odd, quirky things. But, that's my life. I enjoy it. I really wish we could have played that video I pulled up earlier. I really, really do wish you would go watch her. She is adorable and explains things a little bit differently than me and is about half my age. So comes at things a little bit differently. If you perhaps have a young daughter that might be going through this, that video, you know, she might really, really relate to it and it might help her. So with that, I got to go and exercise my superpower and do some libertarian party things because I'm in the middle of minutes and I can't get my mind off these minutes until these minutes are done. So I hope this was informative. I hope you found it humorous. If you also are autistic, you are not alone and you have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Have a good night.